Welcome back. State Senator Zach Wahls is here to talk about his campaign for U.S. Senate. Thanks so much for taking time to be here
Thanks,
today.
Theodore. Good to be here.
Yeah, so let's first talk about why did you decide to put your hat in the ring? What were the top priorities for you?
Absolutely. I'm running for the United States Senate because we can all see that our economy has been rigged. We see the corruption of our politics, and Iowa desperately needs a new vision for the future of our state. There are tough battles to fight in Washington, D.C. and the Iowa Senate. I've built a reputation who's someone that's willing to fight those battles, and sometimes that means standing up to the other party. Sometimes that means standing up to your own party, but it always means making sure that every Iowan has someone in their corner so they're not fighting alone.
So you talk about affordability as one of the issues that you're running on. What are some policies that you think are important to change the reality for Iowans?
Well, number one right now, we have seen our economy roiled by these tariffs over the last 15 months. Ashley Hinson has voted for those tariffs 4 different times, and we need to make sure that we have a smart policy that isn't jacking up the costs for the cost of pretty much everything, whether that's input costs for our farmers, cost of living for everyday Iowa households. That has to stop. We also have to challenge the concentration that we have seen in industry with these big businesses that are jacking up prices, lowering wages, laying people off. It might be good for corporate profits. It's not good for everyday Iowans. And finally, we have to do more when it comes to our healthcare system. I've called for a public option that would bring real competition into our healthcare system, lower the enrollment age for Medicare, expand coverage to include things like vision, dental, hearing. And the last thing I would say, we have to do something about childcare. My wife and I have a 2-year-old, and we were floored when we enrolled him in the daycare center back when he was younger and found out that our daycare cost as much as our mortgage. I hear that from so many young Iowans all over our state, and we deserve a lot better than what we're currently getting.
I want to turn over to the agriculture economy. You touched on this briefly. Farmers are facing high input costs and unstable markets right now. If you are elected, what are some policies that you want to push forward to help farmers?
I think if you zoom out, for the last 50 years, there's been an approach from Washington, D.C. that goes back to the Nixon administration, says that we have to get big or get out of farming, that you should plant fence row to fence row, and that the only thing that really matters is yield. That approach over the last 50 years has resulted in farm size getting bigger, rural counties in Iowa losing population, and an unprecedented amount of concentration in the agri-industry side of things. Farm incomes today are not what they used to be. It used to be farmers would get about 40 cents on the food dollar. Today it's down to about 15 cents. That's not sustainable, and it's not good for rural Iowa. There's so much that we have to do to expand access for the ability of young and next generation farmers to be able to actually buy and keep Iowa farmland in Iowa hands, so it's not just going to Wall Street or these foreign corporations or Bill Gates. There are things that we can do. You just have to have someone who's willing to fight for it, and that's exactly what I'll do in the United States Senate.
Turning to healthcare, you touched briefly on a plan that you would like to propose, but is there anything else that you think is really important for Iowans to know about what you could bring to the table if you are in the Senate?
Absolutely. In addition to a public option and expanding Medicare, one of the things that we hear about as we've been traveling all over Iowa to a lot of our small towns and rural communities is seeing so many rural and small town pharmacies being put out of business by these middlemen called pharmacy benefit managers. If you look at a map of Iowa, you put a dot at every community that's lost a pharmacy over the last decade, the whole state just lights up. And the consequence of that is that folks have to drive further to get the prescription medication they need. We all know the price of gas is through the roof, and so that's getting more expensive than ever. And in the state legislature, I was able to work in a bipartisan way to push for pharmacy benefit manager reform. And in the United States Senate, I'll do exactly the same thing.
On immigration, what are your thoughts on the way that the Trump administration is handling the issue, and would you make any changes?
Look, I don't think that you can see what is happening in our country when it comes to immigration right now and think this administration is doing a good job. Ashley Hinson has been cheerleading what has been happening on the streets of American cities and ICE, and I strongly oppose it. The agency needs to be overhauled, and we do need comprehensive immigration reform. I will also tell you, in our Democratic primary, this is a point of real difference between myself and Representative Josh Turek. In 2024, he voted with Republicans and Kim Reynolds in support of an anti-immigrant bill that was opposed by law enforcement, the ACLU, the Catholic Church, and immigrant groups. When those folks came to the State House to ask us to vote against that bill, I listened. I spoke up during the debate, and I voted no. Representative Turek voted with Republicans in passing that bill, which essentially requires Iowa law enforcement to work with federal agencies like ICE in deporting people who are in this state, including people who are here legally, by the way. I thought that was wrong, and I know that it would have a very negative impact for a lot of the communities where immigrants are a really important part of not just our present, but our future. And that's a place of some real distinction between the two of us.
You speak about sometimes going against your party. So if you are elected, what can Iowans expect from you in the U.S. Senate?
Well, number one, I would tell you, I will not vote to continue the failed leadership of Chuck Schumer. Senator Schumer has been leading the Senate Democrats for about a decade, and he said on national television that the Democratic Party can write off rural and blue-collar voters. And frankly, that is not the Democratic Party that I want to belong to. We need a Democratic Party that fights for people who are losing their jobs because they're being offshored or having their jobs automated by artificial intelligence. We are the party that fights for anybody who needs a champion, no matter who they are or where they come from. That's one of the first questions that you'll have to answer as Iowa's next United States Senator. I've made my position very clear. Representative Turek has said essentially that he's going to support Senator Schumer. And so I think that there's some real difference there as well, because when you think about how we win this election, we need to win back the trust of the rural and blue-collar voters that Senator Schumer said that we should write off. I've done that during my time in the State House representing small town and rural Iowa. And in this campaign, I've been able to win the support of 27 different labor unions representing 30,000 hardworking blue-collar Iowans. We need to win their trust back. And I think the reason the polls show that I'm the strongest candidate for November is because we are already doing that in this campaign.
Last year, we had the longest government shutdown. This year, we had the longest partial government shutdown. Do you think there are changes that need to be made to the filibuster in the Senate?
Look, I have been very clear that I think it is time to end the filibuster and allow the Senate to pass legislation with 51 votes. Again, this is a place of distinction in our Democratic primary. I think that we have seen the filibuster stop so many important proposals, including a public option, by the way, that it is time for us to end the filibuster. When it comes to these conversations, I think one of the things that people are so frustrated by is they see Democrats in the Senate folding and not actually fighting back against this administration. And so my view is that in order to win back the folks we have lost in this state, we got to show some fight. That's what I've done in the legislature, and that's what I'll do in the Senate. Iowa
hasn't had a Democrat in the Senate since former Senator Tom Harkin, and that's been over a decade ago. Why are you the candidate to flip this seat?
Again, when we think about the voters who we have lost in this state and who we need to win back, they are folks who live in a lot of our small town and rural communities. They live in eastern Iowa. A lot of them are the blue-collar folks who feel like the Democratic Party has forgotten about or stopped caring about them. And I also meet a lot of folks who feel so disconnected from our politics because they don't see a Democratic Party that's willing to fight back against Trump and his assault on our democracy. That has to change. And my view is that to win folks back, you have to be honest with them about the rigged economy, the fact that there have been failures by leaders of both parties to stand against the corruption that we see out in Washington, D.C. Again, that has been a problem in both parties. And again, for us, it's that positive vision for the future of small town and rural Iowa that reverses the decades of policies that have been hollowing out many, many parts of our state. It is about meeting people where they are, bringing some grace and some humility to those conversations, and never taking anybody for granted.
So former Senator Harkin and former Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg, they've both endorsed your Democratic primary opponent. Do you feel like that's a challenge to your primary campaign?
Look, our campaign is about the future, and I will always be grateful for Senator Harkin's service to this state. But everywhere we go, folks are much more interested in what is our vision for the future of Iowa. They want to know that we understand the challenges that they are facing in their families, in their towns, in their communities. They want to understand what your plans are to actually address the things that are happening in Iowa. We're doing that everywhere that we go. We started our Iowans Over Insiders tour about 3.5 weeks ago. We've been getting great crowds traveling all over the state. It's been a real blessing, and I really hope that I have the opportunity to represent Iowa in the United States Senate.
And you talked a little about corruption. That's something that you're also running on. What are some key issues that you think we're facing right now, and what are policies that you think are important?
So there are a couple of things that we always talk about. Number one is Iowa's next United States Senator. I will co-sponsor an amendment to our Constitution to overturn the Citizens United decision. This was a Supreme Court decision about 15 years ago that essentially allows these billionaires and big corporations to fund these unlimited amounts of money being spent in our politics. It's wrong and it has to end. Number two, I'm a strong supporter of term limits. I made a promise to only serve 2 terms in the United States Senate if elected. In this state, we know that rotating the crops is good for our soil. I think it's good for our politicians as well. And then finally, I've also made a promise that as Iowa's next United States Senator, I will not own, trade, sell any individual stocks, these cryptocurrencies. I will not gamble on these prediction markets. That'll apply to my wife, my staff, and I'll be sponsoring bipartisan legislation to make sure that it applies to all of my colleagues in the Congress as well as to the White House. Those 3 things are common sense, and they are supported by the vast majority of the people, Democrats, independents, and Republicans. The problem is that we don't have people who are able to fight for those things in Washington, D.C. At the state level, earlier this year, in fact, I introduced in a bipartisan way a state-level constitutional amendment that would have gotten at the same issue as Citizens United. So I know that I've been able to do that here at the State House, and I'm confident I can do it in the United States Senate as well.
And briefly, in 10 seconds, why should Iowans vote for you and not your opponent in the primary?
Iowa needs a fighter. We need to win, and we need someone who can win back the voters whose trust we've lost, and we can't do that if we don't have a new vision for the future. And if you want to learn more, just go to ZachWahls.com.
All right. Thank you so much for taking time to join us today.
Thank you so much.
We'll be right back.